What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, was this the best Saturday of college football so far this season?
It was it lived up to, I think, because of the anticipation of the good day matched with the reality of the good day. Earlier in the year at, what was it, like week 3, I think we ended up having a bunch of upsets and it was a very fun day of college football, but we weren't expecting it, or at least most of the casuals and stuff weren't expecting it. They said it was a light slate, ended up being a great slate. Today, you matched both. You had the anticipation of all these ranked matchups, along with, the interesting outcomes and, the great games throughout the day. So this one probably takes it so far.
Of the games we picked, the 7 games we picked on the preview episode, only one of them was decided by more than 10 points. And we picked all the ranked matchups, plus Florida, LSU. And that was the only one that was 10 points. We got to start, Daniel, with the game of the day, a game that 100% lived up to the hype. Alabama, Tennessee. That atmosphere was unbelievable. Tennessee stuns Alabama at the end of regulation. You couldn't have scripted it any better. And the knuckleball goes through. There's an angle from behind the end zone that shows just how close the ball was to not going in, which from the front view, you couldn't tell how close it was to not going in. You just saw it hit the net. Daniel, I'll give it to you first. I just want to talk about coaching, but give me your takeaways, and I'll save my biggest takeaway is coaching.
Yeah, I mean, those goalposts right now are in the Tennessee River. So this game, it started out kind of how I expected. I figured that Tennessee was going to start fast. And then I felt like Alabama was going to kind of dig their feet in and start to just climb back, and they did. And when they tied the game at 28, I thought, okay, this is, the last straw. And then Tennessee went and scored, but then they missed the extra point, and I was like, oh, okay, there it is. That's all that was needed. Alabama's got their little, sliver of hope, and sure enough, they went and scored and took the lead by 1. And I thought that, okay, that's really the end here of what we're expecting. And then it just kept going back and forth. And, Tennessee obviously makes it up with the 2-point conversion later so that they're tied. And then we get to another point with the fumble recovery return for a touchdown. And it's like, all right, well, okay. That's kind of how Alabama does things sometimes. In a close game, their defense or their special teams will make a play. That's it, and then they'll just kind of salt it away. They'll hold serve the rest of the way. And then it just kept not happening. Tennessee, so this year so far with Tennessee, I've picked against them with Florida. I was right because of the cover, but Tennessee won the game. I picked against them with LSU. I was very wrong. And I picked against them here with Alabama because it's single digits. You have to take Alabama. That's a principle. We talked about it. They have gone through and they have proven themselves over and over and over. And I think because of the disbelief I've had in Tennessee for so long, because of just what we've seen, is caused me to, force them to basically prove it before I'm basically going to pick them in a game. And they're proving it before our eyes. They are the real deal. They are good enough on offense to account for a defense that they're not necessarily abysmal, but they give up a lot of big chunk plays. But they made just enough plays tonight. They offensively, I mean, Hendon Hooker is amazing, but Jalen Hyatt, I mean, just what was it? He had 6 catches for 200 yards.
6 catches, 200 yards, 5 touchdowns.
That's, Jacob, when we're playing the NCAA video game, that's what our video game character does in a game. And, they win the Heisman Trophy and all this kind of stuff. That doesn't happen in a regular game. This is, I mean, you're not even double-digit catches, and he's got 200 yards. It's just like, it was astonishing to see something on a Nick Saban team that was a big, like those big downfield touchdowns, and they just weren't adjusted to and corrected by the end of the game. That's something that stuck out to me, but it just kind of kept hanging. It was the most fun game to watch. I am almost sad that we didn't get overtime, because that's where we were trending until they got 2 seconds on the clock and, they had timeout called. But yeah, good for Tennessee fans, because this is something that's been long overdue. Well, just a fun night. Like, what a way, to tear the goalpost down. You don't see it often. And, taking, like I said, they threw them in the Tennessee River again, which is,
wait, is that really where they ended up?
Yeah, they're in the Tennessee River.
Okay,
right
I
now.
didn't know where where they were taken.
Well, I think because
I saw them in the streets.
They kind of showcased that on College Game Day, where the last time they beat Alabama at home, they threw them in the Tennessee River. So I was like, I didn't realize how close. I knew the Vol Navy and everything, but yeah, they just got them outside the stadium and took them and threw them in the Tennessee River. I'm surprised with all the inebriation that somebody didn't go into the Tennessee River with them the way they were going. But, good on them.
Dark, little cold.
Yeah, no, they made it. They made it. Do they float? I'm sure they sink. They've got to sink.
They got to sink.
They're heavy. Yeah. So, anyways.
I'm surprised no one tried to cut a little piece off. Yeah, that's what Ole Miss did. They ended up cutting it into sections and giving people pieces of the goalposts. Yeah, Daniel, this game lived up to the hype. Both teams relatively limited the other team's explosive play rate. Alabama had a 7% explosive play rate. Tennessee had a 6% explosive play rate. Both teams played incredible offense. I'll say on the Alabama side, Bryce Young, is unbelievable. He was the best player on the field.
Wait, who is that? Who is this you're talking about?
Yeah, Bryce Young.
The Heisman Trophy winner.
That's right, the Heisman Trophy winner.
So he's good.
I think we all know. I think we all know. Bryce Young won the Heisman Trophy. He's really good. Just watch him play and enjoy it, because it seems so easy. Everything he does, it's 3rd and 14. The crowd's
slow around him. Yeah,
and he just steps up in a little gap, finds someone who happens to be wide open, and or puts the ball exactly where it needs to be. First down, keep going. The moment's never too big. He had an answer at every point during this game. So just wanted to say hats off to Bryce Young, best player on the field today. But this game is about Tennessee. Like you mentioned, Daniel, when Dallas Turner picked up that fumble and brought it into the end zone, I was like, yep. Like you said, this is what Bama does. They take your heart out and show it to you and crush it. And I was like, this is going to be hard to get 18 to 22-year-olds motivated after something like that. Yeah. When you've had a lead all game. And the next drive, they go 11 plays in 4 minutes and a touchdown, 60-yard drive. And it was just all right, they answered. They were right back in it. And that ended up being the, 49-49. So it got them in the position to go and kick the field goal at the end. Credit to Tennessee. Huge win. The offense is legit. You did it without your best receiver as well. So there's been some talk of receiver this, receiver that. Tennessee just beat you without their best receiver. So I think that should not be understated. What a coaching job by Tennessee, because to be honest, Daniel, this game was won on the sidelines. Tennessee outcoached Alabama today. And especially Tennessee's offense against Alabama's defense. We talked in the preview. One of the reasons we picked Alabama was I thought, Alabama was going to get home quickly. Hendon Hooker had all day to throw, man. Tennessee dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage. I'll say for the whole first half, they dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage. I think the second half, Bama's offensive line kind of stepped up in the second half. But the last drive, I'm just still baffled. When Tennessee gets the ball, all right, and there's, let's see here, 15 seconds left in the game. And no. There was what, like 40?
I thought it was, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. It was like in the
No.
it was like 30 seconds.
It was 15 seconds when they got the ball.
Okay.
Think about that. 15 seconds left. So they're at their own 32. Why in the world, when all you have to do is kick a field goal, are you in prevent defense on 1st and 10 from their own 32?
I mean,
What do you like? And the thing is,
2 words, Jalen Hyatt.
like, here's the thing. It wasn't even to him. The next pass was to Keaton for 18 yards. Like,
no, I'm saying they were trying to prevent him from running over the top
gotcha.
again.
But I'm like, put 2 guys back there. They dropped 8 behind the 50-yard line. So what did Tennessee do? They took exactly what Alabama gave them. They got to the 50 in one play, called timeout. That next throw, Alabama actually lined up when you actually maybe could have been playing prevent at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they actually lined up in their normal defense. 27-yard gain to Bree McCoy. Next play was the field goal. So that game was lost when Alabama lined up in prevent when Tennessee had it 1st and 10 on their own 32 with 15 seconds left. You had overtime in the bag. All you had to do was get them to run the clock, not give up. Like, you had to cover 60 yards. That was it. 60 yards and prevent them from going anywhere. And so I just thought that was just a coaching whiff on Alabama's sideline. I thought Pete Golding, that was just a terrible call at the end of the game. And at the end of the day, it cost them the game. But huge credit to Tennessee. This team's legit. You and I were talking before the show. I will have them at 3 on my part of our rankings. We'll see where they end up. But, you and I, when we do our extra point rankings,
right,
we only account for about a third. It's a little less with the formula. But we do have some input. But I will have them at, I think they're the 3rd best team in the country after that win. Where are you at with Tennessee?
That's where I have them. Yeah, I have them at 3. I have them at 3 after that win. Great win. And, against a very quality opponent, obviously. So, yeah, I think they're 3 right now, and we'll see how far that takes them.
So, for what it's worth, we're recording at 11:52 p.m. on the East Coast. USC and Utah, did you see the update?
No.
Utah scored, went for 2, and got it. It's 43-42 Utah.
Oh, my gosh.
32 seconds left. USC has the ball 3rd and
Luckily,
15.
USC gets 3.5 points for that pick. But
they do.
Just shout out. So I think I've got that in the bag regardless at this point. Because if Utah gets it, they'll take a knee. There's no way USC gets down there and scores 1 point. So
right. Yeah. Oh man, so you're gonna have the cover. Here I am thinking.
I got the cover.
Yes, I kept forgetting they're 3.5 point favorites.
Yeah. So really, this hurts you because you're a USC
man. They should have
fan.
gone to overtime.
And then yeah, exactly. What a call! What a call by Kyle Whittingham, dude.
When they had to get it on 4th and 1, it was 4th and goal when they had to score the touchdown. So
8 seconds left.
We'll see if this one finishes up. Daniel, another ranked matchup of the day. Undefeated matchup that lived up to the hype. TCU and Oklahoma State.
Your fraudulent Oklahoma State Cowboys.
And they still were, for what it's worth. They kept it way closer than it should have been. TCU for a little bit forgot that Quentin Johnson existed for a whole half. Little turnover luck early, got him down 14-0 early. After that little 14-0 in the beginning that was gifted to Oklahoma State, it was all TCU from that point forward. And really, it was the 14 points that they were spotted that even kept Oklahoma State in this game. But they go to overtime. TCU wins. Finally, Oklahoma State gets a loss they deserved. And we can all go home happy that TCU
well,
but they didn't cover. They didn't
exactly
cover.
Happy. Yeah, we picked TCU to cover the 3.5, and they win by 3. So, we're a little bit upset because our pick sheet, I started out 0-3. I had to really come on here late. Now, granted, I'm going to finish 4-3. So, great finish to the day. But
I really was surprised that first overtime. It was like that quick pass to Quentin Johnson. They scored in like one or two plays, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this one's over." And they had Oklahoma State fourth down. I was like, "Oh yeah, cover!" Like, got it in the bag. Anyway, we lost the cover, but hey, TCU is 6-0. I'm pulling up their schedule, Daniel. They go to Kansas State next Saturday. Then they got West Virginia, Texas Tech. They go to Texas. Then they have Baylor and Iowa State. So, like, I think it is extremely realistic that you're looking at a 10-2 TCU team, if not an 11-1 TCU team.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very fair, especially the way they're playing. I think it can be tough for a lot of those teams to beat them. So, I mean, Texas, I know that they had a tough, hard-fought game with Iowa State, but honestly, that's the type of game that they'd be losing the past few years against Iowa State, and they took care of business in a close win. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a game you circle that's probably going to be a loss for TCU, but I mean, TCU has the ability to go undefeated on that schedule.
They do.
But from what we've watched so far this year, I say it's probably likely that they lose one or two games. But I'd say it's probably more likely that they only lose one game the way they're playing. So,
Daniel, I totally forgot that this was a bad beat of the day because at 3.5 points, TCU actually scored a touchdown to win. But because it was a walk-off, they scored second. Like Oklahoma State kicked the field goal. TCU scored the touchdown.
That is a bad beat of the day.
They don't get to kick the extra point.
If they did just kick the extra point, but they can't. I mean, you don't.
Because it's irrelevant.
There's no
yeah,
point.
It's just like, oh, you won, so you don't need this extra point.
Yeah.
I think that should be gifted back to the people. I'll see what I can do.
Our show's called The Extra Point, so why don't we just take it for, like, that's our extra point.
You know what? I do have commissioner powers in the league. Maybe I can just go switch all those picks around and
do it.
give the rightful point to the people.
Look, everybody hates Oklahoma State anyways, all right? You've convinced them to hate them.
I hope so. At least this year. Every year it gets reset, but this year, the fraudulent Cowboys of Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Daniel, the third of the undefeated matchups today was the big noon kickoff, the least exciting of the games. We had Penn State and Michigan. This is the one pick I said on the preview that I felt of all our 7 games, like this is the only one I feel confident in. And I was glad because it actually, got me, I say a point against you. You still beat me this week. But wait, did we both go 4-3 then?
No, we both went 4-3.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
Yeah. No. Because everything else is picked exactly the same.
And we went 1-1.
I got the USC pick. You got the Michigan pick. So
love it.
Which
41-17.
What a great win! Because that's that's a good Penn State team. Michigan, they've really turned a corner. Obviously last year, but so far this year they're putting teams away, and this is just a different moxie from this Michigan group, and they're just not playing around with folks. So I've been impressed. Blake Corum's having a great year running the ball. I think you'll probably see him starting to pop up on some Heisman lists just because he's amassing so many yards. And obviously they're undefeated. He's having a good year. But, just in general, I'm impressed that, they won by as much as they did. And I picked Penn State. I didn't feel good about it because immediately after you were very confident about Michigan. And then as we went through the week, I was just like, yeah, this isn't going to. Then I watched College Game Day, and they had a beautiful story with the Michi guy with Michigan. And I was like, well, I'm pulling for Michigan now because of how sweet that story was. So, it's like you watch all that and it's like, yeah, there's no chance here. And then for the first little bit, what was the first half? Penn State hangs with them. And then Michigan, that's the thing, is Michigan is a much deeper team, and the way that they're going to pound you, it's going to be a whole, the floodgates are going to open the fourth quarter if you're not up to their standard. And Penn State's not quite there. I mean, I don't want to just fast forward the rest of the year because I love, taking it week to week. But man, Michigan and Ohio State again is just going to be must watch. I'm very excited for when they clash later in the year.
This was a top to bottom dominant win. I know that score looked close at halftime. You got to remember how they got there. That was Sean Clifford had a ridiculously long run on one of the drives. And then you had that freak tip drill pick six. That was their other touchdown. Then they had a field goal. So like Penn State's drives, punt, touchdown, halftime, field goal, turnover on downs, punt, turnover on downs, turnover on downs. Michigan's drives, field goal, touchdown, pick six, field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, end of game. 0 punts. Daniel, if I told you on Tuesday,
I mean, every drive ended in a score, even the pick six. So.
Yeah, even the pick six.
Yeah.
If I told you on Tuesday Michigan's going to run the ball for 418 yards, how quickly would you have bet Michigan?
Yeah. When you run for that much
against Penn State.
Yeah. So
this team's good.
Do they run for 1,000 if they play Auburn? Because what Penn State did to Auburn. Yeah.
There's a chance. How good is Michigan? Like, is this a team? You mentioned Ohio State. Like,
they could beat Ohio State. They could.
I think they can too.
It's because of the style that they play. That's what won them the game last year. So if they play again this year, I think Ohio State, like what we've talked about with Knowles being the DC, things are different. But if Michigan gets to play their game the way they want to play it, it's going to be a battle of wills. I mean, Michigan could absolutely beat Ohio State this year.
Love it. All right.
Ohio State gets Penn State next week, right?
Is it next Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's big noon next Saturday. Penn State's going to be like, look, can we just have a break, please?
No, Ohio State plays Iowa next week.
It's 2 weeks from now then.
Yeah, 29th. Big new kickoff. So that will be a fun one to watch. I'm trying to see if Utah has gone. It's been a rough show in Utah. There we go.
43-42, Utah wins, but USC covers.
That's right.
The cover Trojans.
Storming the field. That's so funny. So USC gets its first loss of the season. Then you're looking at the rest of their schedule. They've still got to play. I mean, UCLA and Notre Dame are their last 2 games of the season. Before that, they've got Arizona, Cal, Colorado, which I don't foresee them losing any of those games.
Yeah.
How do you think USC finishes at this point? They get their first loss. Can they run the table and still be a playoff team?
Yeah, I think so. The Notre Dame deal, because they lost to Stanford today, right? It's just
what's Notre Dame's going to show up?
And this is the thing. Notre Dame can beat USC, but will they? I mean, they shouldn't beat USC based on what we've seen, but they can. So you can't just, it's college football. You can't just throw that out completely, and it's a rivalry game. But USC, I think they can run the table.
UCLA, hey, they're on the road at UCLA.
Yeah, that raucous 38 fans are going to – USC is going to have a home game at the Rose Bowl. So, unfortunately, because, UCLA having a good year so far. It's going to be a fun game. 2 future Big Ten schools, so –
Daniel, elsewhere, a game that kind of flew under the radar. Syracuse and NC State, both going into that game ranked, and Syracuse remains undefeated. They are 6-0.
I was going to say, big story there, unfortunately, is that Devin Leary did not play in the game, and turns out he's going to be out for the season with that torn pectoral. the good news is that there's no like structural damage or anything,
Yeah.
and it's going to be like a full recovery deal. But unfortunately, NC State's been kind of looking forward to this season for a while, um, largely because of Devin Leary, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So that stinks. But good on Dino Babers and Syracuse for extending their undefeated streak. And I mean, they're a force to be reckoned with right now in the ACC. When do they play Clemson?
They play Clemson next week
Okay,
at Clemson.
as
So
the football gods would have it, just
real test. Then they go play Notre Dame in the Carrier Dome, or the dome formerly known as the Carrier Dome. Their schedule is backloaded. They got Clemson, Notre Dame, Pitt, Florida State, Wake Forest, Boston College. So
that's a light schedule. They don't even play Georgia Tech. So
we'll find out who Syracuse is. We'll stay in the ACC. Clemson and Florida State. This game was awesome early, and then Clemson just kind of did what Clemson does, and just kind of suffocated you. I thought DJ looked really, really good. I thought he threw the ball really well downfield. Clemson just, I felt like they toyed with Florida State, where they were just like, yeah, we'll let you do that, and we'll let you do that. Like Jordan Travis, he's awesome. He can run on us. That's fine. Like, you're not going to score enough points to win.
yeah,
It was just kind of like, you can do whatever you want, but you're not winning. Like, they had 460 yards of offense, Florida State did.
yeah. It's kind of like they had the hand on the head.
Yeah.
And then Florida State couldn't quite reach them. They weren't getting any body blows on Clemson. Right. And so Clemson's able to just that is how it felt. Clemson's defense can do that, especially to teams. You've got to be executing at a very high clip, like Wake Forest was, to be able to get Clemson's defense. And it's got to be the right day and the right time and all of that. Clemson's offense, I've been impressed. They've been able to be balanced, which is the big key, because at times they were balanced at being bad at both running and passing.
Right.
And then, there's been sometimes where they sway better, passing the ball and rushing the ball. So Will Shipley had a good day on the ground, over 100 yards. And then, DJ continues to, he's trying to, it's tough because, you had the first two times we saw him his freshman year, and then our expectations are through the roof. Then last year happens, and then our expectations are in the cellar. And then now he's really just trying to build back, some confidence, kind of show that he can do it. And he's got all the talent in the world. So it's good to see him, winning football games, playing good offense. I think he's good, not great right now, but I mean, he could keep evolving. But it looked good today. The team looked good. It was a good team win. They should have won by this much. And I say this much, it ended up only being 6 points because Florida State, there's no quit in that team. You and I are both big Norvell guys. They kept fighting even at the end after they were down.
Yeah.
Or they were down by 20 at one point, I think.
Yeah.
And that was
34-14.
Yeah. So that was kind of the feeling I had coming into this game. But Florida State kept fighting, got a couple late touchdowns to make this one look better. I think that team really believes in Norvell, and I think he'll keep them playing close games all year. So, but yeah, shout out to Clemson. I mean, Clemson's back.
Yeah, they are the Clemson prior to 2021. Like they're just Clemson, which is a top team in the country.
They're on track to be in the playoff. They keep winning, win the ACC championship. They're in.
And they're beating teams well. It's not like last year where even you saw a couple games where they snuck by.
Right.
They're beating teams really well. Wake Forest was that one game that went to overtime. And since then, they've kind of had a couple of just like where Clemson wins.
And honestly, that's more about Wake Forest than it was about Clemson because,
they played well in that game. So last game we picked on our preview episode, Daniel, LSU, Florida. I mean,
love it.
All I got to say about this game, Daniel, is LSU scored in their first 6 drives. put up over 500 yards of offense and 45 points on 70 plays. That's about as bad as you can be on defense on the other side, and as good as you can be on offense for LSU.
And that's with this offense. Jack Besh, the special team, Jack Besh fumbling a punt return. This was, he's had a lot of issues so far. And Brian Kelly said after the game that he's one of their better players and he believes in him. I think she actually said it at halftime. So there's been a lot of special teams miscues so far. And then just towards the end of the game, there's some procedural stuff. And I just keep looking at this and thinking, I mean, just give it time with Brian Kelly. These things are going to get buttoned up because that's what he does with teams. But it was great to see Kayshon Boutte show up over 100 yards receiving today. Great game by all the wide receivers for LSU. It's finally like kind of their emergence. I've been talking about them so much. I know we candidly joke about me with 10-2 LSU and all this kind of stuff. The reason I fell in love with LSU in the offseason truly was their wide receivers, Jere Jenkins, Kayshon Boutte, and then Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors. They all had great days today. Jere Jenkins had that long touchdown. Brian Thomas had a great third down conversion for a first down, which was like a 30-yard pass. This was the first time that we've seen Jaden Daniels look like a competent passer. For a large portion of the game, and then he used his legs as an extra gear. I think the balance that he had allowed the offense to flow really well. This was also maybe their best offensive line game of the year. Really able to move some guys and get some good running holes for Josh Williams and John Emery Jr. So very impressed. On the flip side, Florida had some counter punches early. They even were up early. And then even when when LSU was pulling away and LSU was up by 3 touchdowns, I mean, Florida got it to within 1 score. They had the long Anthony Richardson touchdown run where he's just, electric, can change the game in a whim. But the better team won this game. LSU's better. They went into the swamp, beat them by 10. Just a fun game overall. 10-2 LSU. It's still alive. And you're on mute, Jacob.
Thank you. 10-2 LSU. It is still alive.
I was about to take over the podcast. It was just going to be my podcast the rest of the time.
It was going to be a lot of LSU talk.
Look at me. I am the host now. All right. So
special segment just for this week. Not really, but just 2 more teams I wanted to talk about. So 2 for 52. 2 teams that scored 52 points that really impressed me this week.
Oh.
Arkansas and Oklahoma. So shout out to Oklahoma for getting out all their frustration and putting on 700 yards of offense against.
This is definitely a throwback of Oklahoma offense.
That's what Oklahoma should do to to Kansas. I think we forgot that that's how that game's supposed to look. Kinda. It was still a 10-point game. So, and then Arkansas and BYU. Arkansas, after losing 3 straight, gets back KJ Jefferson and goes and puts up 52 on BYU in Provo. They won that game 52-35. KJ, man, 28 of 38, 353 yards, 5 touchdowns through the air. Had another 10 rushes for 32 yards on the ground. I mean, dude, he's a beast.
And that one play, I think I texted you about it. He kind of runs into a couple guys at the line, rolls back out, gets hit again, rolls back around and hits, I believe it was Trey Knox on a kind of a stop route. And Trey Knox catches it and then runs across the field and scores. It was one of these plays where the players made the play. It wasn't a route that was drawn up perfectly. It wasn't a misdirection scheme. It was this play got broken up in the backfield. Trey Knox caught it standing still and ran past everybody. And that was the Arkansas we've come to know and love. Just a couple of special players making some plays. And it's good to see KJ back because he is everything that's right with, college football and, all that stuff. And it just, he makes that offense go and hum and do everything that they want to do. So great game.
Great game. Any final thoughts from you, Daniel? That covers my
I think that's everything. Shout out Georgia Southern with the upset victory over James Madison. Took care of that, and
Hail Southern.
Yeah, Eagle 6. So
that was on our picks I do on the side. I picked Georgia Southern as one of my 10 best bets. So love that there. Shout out to the Pac-12 Network for once again preventing me from watching my Oregon State Beavers. So another big win for them, keeping eyes off of their conference. So shout out to the Pac-12 Network.
It's that Jonathan Smith blackout. You just can't watch him ever.
And they're beating, Washington State 24-10. So, hey, 8-4, Oregon State is still very much on the table. So, all for it there. You can follow the podcast on social media at the Extra Point Pod on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow Daniel on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. And that will do it for this edition of the Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob.